Well, we're alive with the C3 podcast. Special guest.
Royal Rumble edition.
Oh, yeah.
Special guest, Mr. McMyer. We can go around and introduce ourselves. Do you know what our voices sound like? Put a name to the voice.
Kyle.
Josh.
Turnus.
Mr. McMyer.
This is Mike. Broadcasting in Mr. McMyer's mansion. On top of the biggest hill in Bismarck.
It's pretty nice down here, actually.
It is.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Oh, no problem.
My pet tiger's pretty awesome.
It was pretty
It
awesome.
bites, so watch
Yeah,
out.
yeah. But I mean, it's a tiger, so.
Well, you know, when I saw it, I was like, a tiger. I mean, this is cliche. Like,
Until it bit you.
yeah.
And then you were like, respect the tiger.
Yeah. Well, I suppose since we are a comic show, let's get that out of the way. Mr. McMyer.
Yes.
Comics, your view.
That's kind of a big question.
Wow.
I'll give you a broad spectrum to paint with.
Yeah.
My view of comics, since I was a little kid, my grandma used to take me to a drugstore, and I'd look at comics and like throw them away. I didn't think about collecting them or anything, you know. And my uncle always had comic books around, and once again, it was just one of those things lying around.
It's very common. I mean, even kids today. I mean, there are, like, I'd say 50-50 on those that buy them strictly as magazines, and they get tossed out just as.
Yeah, when I was a kid, that's what it was. I mean, it was a 60-cent thing that you picked up, and like that was like my highlight. You know, my grandma used to take me down to the drugstore and like get Incredible Hulk and like read through it a couple times, and boom, I don't know where it went after that. You know, I couldn't tell you.
Do you think you threw anything away with value?
Oh, more than likely, I did. Yeah, because I didn't understand it at the time.
BRB guys, I'm going dumpster diving.
Yeah.
It was just like my very first recollection. That's what it was. It was going to that drugstore, seeing that comic book rack, and like, oh man, it was awesome, you know. And you know, as things progressed, you know, it was kind of like actually the thing that did it was Superman. The death of Superman was what did it for me. Actually collecting. That was such a big thing at the time, and then I got it. That was my first comic book I actually bought myself, and then it was like I was hooked after that.
That's kind of crazy because that was when I first really became aware of comics. Was the death of Superman?
Yeah,
because that was the first time it'd been advertised outside of itself.
Yeah, and that was a nationwide, that was a worldwide event.
It was a great hook for DC, I think, to get people into comics because I bought it, I read it, but I couldn't stop after that. I wanted to see the whole progression of the whole thing after that. It was awesome. Yeah,
and keeping everything.
And of course, written by and Doomsday created by Dan Jurgens, friend of the show. Well, not really.
Friend on Facebook.
Friend on. I met him at a convention for 5 seconds.
If you're listening to this.
Yeah. But he's a Minnesota native though, so that's pretty cool actually. That
we're close.
Cool. Yeah, that he's close. He's in our own backyard actually, and he still does a lot of stuff for actually DC today, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Does he do Marvel at all?
None that I can think of offhand, but and I know these days. I mean, he's still signing Doomsday pictures. You know, he's definitely
he's still writing. Dude.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely set him up for a good, healthy career, and it's hard to believe that was freaking 20 years ago already.
Yeah.
And
it was probably one of the best things that was ever done in comics. Commercially.
Easily.
I hate to say it, but that's what got me like hooked. And
well, and that was at the time too. When did he die? What was the year?
93.
That was 93.
93. I mean 94. Let's look at what was popular. I mean Nirvana. I mean
that was huge.
Everything like that. The birth of the anti-hero was really big. People don't remember, but there was a time in the 90s when Lobo was more popular than Superman. Which, I mean, you say that today,
That's
or
true.
or any other decade, and they'll say that's the dumbest thing you've ever said.
Look over at my rack over there. I got Lobo Goes Hollywood
Yeah.
somewhere hidden over there. And
You're in
it's
here,
like-
folks. Take a look at Eric's rack.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Oh, done.
that's like a who's who of 90s comics over there.
Kyle's got his hands all over it.
Yeah.
I have my hands on Eric's rack.
Spawn versus Batman.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, 90s Spawn, yeah.
Sexy, yeah.
Coming up on
But,
issue 250 already.
How awesome was Spawn?
Oh, I think it's bummed me out that people today aren't that into it. I mean,
Man.
McFarlane's only gotten better, and with it, you got issue 250 coming up, and then they're bringing back Al Simmons as Spawn. It's been quite a while since that character.
When
and,
Spawn and Eamon showed up on the scene, man, there was nothing bigger than that.
oh, it's huge.
It was
And
Spawn was big,
Yeah.
and then you got the movie that came out shortly. It just boom. I mean,
Which,
Spawn
and that
just
movie deserves a
exploded.
lot of credit for being one of the very first not bad superhero movies
Oh, yeah.
outside
Yep.
outside of the first two
The
Superman.
director's
Yeah.
cut of Spawn is
solid.
Is
Like with
solid.
the
It's
makeup
awesome.
and everything. I
it
think
really is.
the number one thing that killed that movie, it was just the presentation, and I
Yeah.
think the overall delivery of that as a film, because there was no marketing like we see today.
Mhm.
You know, it was
Yeah.
like, oh, Spawn came in the theater.
I
and
don't know if that
people
was
didn't.
so much Todd McFarlane's
No, I
representation of
it
that
was-
movie, though. I
Yeah.
think if he would have done the movie different, it probably would have
Yeah.
turned out different.
But I think
much-
like a lot of
Much
guys,
like
I think he,
Frank Miller's interpretation.
Yeah,
Of probably
I don't think McFarlane did much other than supply the characters and
Right. The movie wasn't so bad. I mean, you had Michael
No.
Jai White
No.
as Spawn, which
Yeah.
was awesome.
that costume was amazing.
How about
Yes.
John Leguizamo?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, you look back at that movie and you watch The Vindicator. I mean,
Well, let's here's
Damn.
another
he
thing.
killed it.
Spawn, Blade, once again, the white man. You know, taking everything from the black man, and then we finally get a good movie with X-Men.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and,
Which, because it wasn't.
It's kind of a good point. You know?
I mean, who was John Stewart? I know, because when did John Stewart come around? Was the '80s, right? Talking Green Lantern.
Green Lantern. There,
He was the first. If I'm correct, I want to believe in the '70s or '80s. Anyway, John Stewart was the first superhero to not have the term black in his name. First African American to not be, the Black Panther or
Yeah.
the Black
Right.
whatever.
Right.
Black
So,
Lightning. and-
Black Lightning, yeah. So
Black
it wasn't
Adam.
until late '70s, early
Who's a lady?
'80s.
Did you guys see
Yeah,
Tyrese
until we had
is
that.
pushing for a Green Lantern? Tyrese.
Yeah.
That would be
Well,
What do you guys think of that? I'm down with that.
yeah.
I want Ryan Reynolds in blackface.
Oh. Ouch.
No, not really.
But
But
yeah, and pushing and a lot of people when it came down to it, like you said, like with Blade was one of my favorites, and like Blade 2 is still one of my go-to, like Sunday afternoon.
Not to
throw in-
interrupt, but I got Blade #1 right behind
That's-
Kyle over
Yeah,
there too.
I've
if
been
you-
eyeballing it, and it's pretty. And
It's,
that
it's
is a
two African American Blade, and I mean it's awesome.
Yeah, and that's-
they don't,
that's-
they don't get as much.
yeah,
credit
that's
as-
really cool because they were the first, in the '90s especially, the first really solid,
that's
movies. What was I gonna say? Okay, so Mr. McMyer,
True. Yes.
as does with everything, you fell out with comics.
Just yeah.
Girls, we can all blame them for everything.
Just because I don't have the time, I
Right.
should say that. It's still a love of mine, but yeah.
Well, it's a hard hobby to keep up too, because they're monthlies and it's just
It evolves so much.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's wow. I try to keep up on it, but it is constantly evolving.
Oh, it's
They
and
did
even
this
that
in
Which
There's
is
a show
one
like
thing I love
C3.
about them. It has to do that.
It has to evolve, and I think these days we're finding, like now, it's a lot of guys in our generation that are coming back to it. Where there's guys like I myself. I mean, I stuck with it. I think I stopped buying on a regular basis like 2002, 2003, and then it wasn't until like 2000, I'd say 2009ish, somewhere in there, where I started
Right.
revisiting them and be able. Because I know I stopped buying on a regular basis at Walking Dead. I think it was like 16 is when I.
Did you have number one?
I did, and I owned that 3 different times.
Speaking of Spawn, I
Oh,
had Spawn number 1 at one point in my possession, but
Ooh.
not that it's worth that much nowadays. But,
But-
it's just one of those things where I
But then again, yeah.
shouldn't have let go. You know.
Yeah,
Well, Spawn, Walking Dead. I mean, who would have? The Walking Dead, especially.
yeah,
Who would have pegged that show?
not at all. Yeah,
Who
But I remember
would have known
reading
it?
those-
It would have gotten a show, and
Yeah.
then it would have been the hit that it was.
Yeah, holy
Right.
cow! And that's, I mean,
Comic
cheers to everybody that has held on to them, and we have, because I definitely, I think like a lot of guys in that early 2000s, where it seemed to have just stopped. It was like it hit that wall, like the creatively, and it's like people weren't caring about Spider-Man, and then we had like Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie came out.
The movies
But-
kind of killed the comic
Yeah,
creativity.
and it was like because
you know?
people weren't just like we're seeing now, where even then, because what was that first Spider-Man 2004 already?
The first one
Yeah, the Tobey
was
Maguire
2002.
2002. Okay, and then that was
And X-Men right after that.
X-Men was
Right.
99.
That was right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
X-Men was first,
right?
yeah,
And then
yeah.
Spider-Man, and which blew my mind seeing both of those on big screen. But
Yeah.
looking back on it now, it kind of killed.
And then
it
Daredevil
killed.
came
It
out
kind of killed
shortly
comic
after as
books
well.
Daredevil
as a
was
Yeah.
three,
as a
I think,
print
yeah.
and as a creativity. It kind
Mhm.
of.
well, X-Men. I mean, that was a huge deal. That was a big summer blockbuster, and I mean, it definitely.
Yeah, so was Spider-Man too. I think
Yeah.
that set like Memorial Day records, if I
Yeah.
remember right. Yeah.
Yep.
But then when you look, it had nothing to do with. I mean, that didn't do anything for comics.
No,
I mean, and that's I guess one.
it did as in the movie.
Yeah,
in the
for
movies,
the character of Spider-Man, it did.
bringing
Yeah.
them into the movies, it did. It absolutely did. Into the comic books, it didn't do a whole lot. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it didn't.
People weren't rushing out. And,
Well, that's something that I've always found frustrating about the death of Superman is, that really brought comics to like kind of a mainstream level of, people were purchasing it because it was going to be a collector's item, and then like I kind of blame that a lot for the all the variants and all that crap that we have today, because people are going out
although
and
it
buying just
wasn't
to have
as
the-
bad. I mean, when you look at compared to like let's say at the time when we had all our foil covers and all our
Yep.
for Superman to come out with there's 3 or 4 that I can think of.
Yeah.
It's like your white wrap, your black wrap. And they
Well,
have the,
not
the
even
bloody
just
edition.
like the
Yeah.
variants that issue had, but the fact that it brought to mind to the mainstream that hey, some of these comics are worth something, so we're gonna print 18 different variant covers of this issue.
Mm-hmm.
Try and track these ones down because they're gonna be worth something in 2 years. When really they're
Yeah,
not gonna be
no.
worth.
They printed 2
But-
million in each.
Yeah.
One good thing is it brought a lot of people to comics.
Yes.
Because
And not movies.
because what it
You know,
did,
like with Spider-Man and X-Men in the movies, it was that brought the mainstream into the movie realm.
Yep.
Where Death of Superman brought that into like people back to comic books.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm watching Vince McMahon.
You guys,
like,
you guys think
Broke his
Superman
ankle.
never tore a quad?
yeah,
well, so
two
it's-
quads
Two
quads
quads.
right here. Yeah.
here's the thing that I guess I just kind of realized, maybe why it worked, is it was something that was exclusive to comic books.
Mm-hmm.
Gwen Stacy
Good
died
point.
in the 80s,
Good.
Right.
but in the new
You're right.
Spider-Man movie, she also dies. But let's just say Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Whatever the huge thing to happen in there, do you think it's going to happen in the comics or in the movie? People are going to go to the movie to see whatever's
Right.
going to happen. They're not going to go to
Death
the
of
comic
Superman,
books.
like, hey, Superman's gonna die.
And it's
How are
only
you
gonna be-
how are you gonna see this? Well, you
Yeah.
gotta buy the comic.
Exactly. So-
And that's what got me there. It's
Yeah.
like, damn, I want to see. I love Superman. He's one of my all-time favorites, and as much as I didn't want to see him die, I really did.
Yeah. Well, it's
you
just-
want to see
it's
how is
something
this
that, yeah.
how is this invincible hero gonna die?
And I got kind of 2 things for
Doomsday.
that.
That's how he's gonna.
Yeah,
die.
2 things for that. Number 1 is that was in a time when you could get away with that with the death of, because as we know now,
It
death
wasn't
of
done.
means
It-
nothing.
Yeah.
No.
Characters die and come back all the time. It means absolutely nothing. But the mass populace, had no idea that Superman is dead.
That was
Which
CNN
every true
coverage.
Yeah,
every
that was,
true
There
fan
was
was like,
two big
they'll be
things
gone
that-
for a year.
There was two big
Yeah.
things that happened in the mid '90s or early '90s, mid '90s, and that was Superman getting his back broken.
Batman.
Batman.
Superman tore his quad, remember?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's why he lost that fight to
I'm
Doomsday.
inebriated. Yeah, exactly. Like Batman getting his back broken and Superman dying.
Yeah,
It's
it's-
like
What happened?
my heroes were
Not to,
just
not to interrupt. So we tear your quad. Did he like
he
pop out
got
his
he
knee or
got
something?
in. No, he tore his quads.
Oh.
Both of them getting
Both
into the
quads.
ring.
Into the ring.
Like,
That's a no. He did
Yeah.
for real. He tore both of his quads getting into the ring.
For anybody listening, we're watching pro wrestling.
Yeah.
And there's an infamous match in which the owner of Wrestling as We Know It gets into the ring and he tears 2 quads doing it.
Kyle, you're explaining this like nobody that knows comics knows pro wrestling.
anatomy. Yeah.
Well, there might be
You guys know what's going on.
There might be that crossover audience. You don't know
Everybody
that.
listening to this knows what's going on.
It's kind of
Come
funny
on.
that you bring
It
up
goes
those,
hand in hand.
those two events because as a kid I was always a huge Ninja Turtles fan, always a huge Batman fan because, I watched the shows, I had the toys, had seen the movies, whatever, but didn't really know about the comics or anything like that. And I remember I was in a play that was being directed at a local high school, and there was this guy there. I was like in 3rd grade at the time, and he was like, "Oh, you're into Batman? You got to see this." And he pulled this issue out of his backpack, and he opened it up to the last page, and it was Bane breaking the bat.
Nightfall, yeah.
Yep, and it was at that point that I was like, "Wow, I need to see that," and that's when I started getting more into Batman the comic books.
Oh,
So that's why for me.
I remember Turnus when me and you went to The Dark Knight Rises. I'm
Yep.
like, I want to
Yep.
see one thing in this movie.
Yeah.
Crack.
Yeah.
I want to see crack. His,
Yeah.
his
Crack.
back,
Lots and lots of crack. Yeah.
his back getting broken. That's what I want to see, and I think everybody wanted to see that.
Yeah.
I was just talking with somebody about and to transition into there was with Rises and the adaptations that we've had of comics to film, and like Rises. Personally, that one out of that trilogy just broke my heart, and it was something that, like for Bane, like when you're taking, this guy is the pinnacle of bad guy in the Batman world.
Right.
And personally, they deduced him to a thug. They just deduced him to being Talia's bodyguard essentially.
Yeah.
And then
I don't know, man.
Wasn't it kind of
he had his moments, but then like the whole deal, it's like it was like okay, he's gonna break his back, and then it's like if you look back at the Nightfall comics, I mean it was like 2 years, 3 years by the time because it had all the different people stepped up and took the suit.
It's hard to describe how awesome Bane is.
Right, and he is one of my favorite
Even in Dark Knight
villains.
Rises,
yeah, he is one of my favorite
It doesn't compare
villains.
in the comics how smart, how powerful. That guy is just.
That's one of the
on
most
top
frustrating
shit,
things for me is because Bane in the comics is this criminal mastermind. He's a genius. I mean,
How about Bane and Batman Forever?
we're not going to
We're
talk about
that's-
that now.
The Venom, I did like the Venom aspect.
That was cool, but I gotta say this real quick. It's just like,
Frankenstein.
if you guys don't know,
That was horrible.
what happens in the Nightfall trilogy is basically Bane wants to break the bat, and he figures out the best way to do this is he gets some rocket launchers and he blows up the maximum security ward of Arkham Asylum, freeing all of the rogues gallery at the same time, and because he knows Batman's gonna have to track him down and take him out, and then he just over the course of like 2 days, Batman's taking these guys down, Bane's watching Batman, and then.
But right there, you said it right there. What did he want to do always? He wanted to break the Batman.
He wanted to break the bat.
And that's why when I saw it actually on film, breaking his back,
Yeah.
that's all Bane ever wanted to do, was break the Batman's back. Or, not back, but he just
But he
wanted to break the
him,
Batman,
yeah.
right?
Sammy Sosa, man, just wanted to break the bat.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. I mean,
Yeah.
he just...
Well, and that's where, like in
That
Rise,
was one thing that got really right about that movie. He lifted him up, he broke his back.
Yep.
It was
Yeah.
awesome.
and he dumps him, and
if you have Bane in a movie, you gotta have that.
Which
moment.
is key. But I guess the thing that bugged
But
me
I
the
agree
most,
with you though.
you know, was
Yeah.
the fact that it was like, oh, okay, Bruce has his back broken. He's lying in the pit. Meanwhile, Gotham doesn't really fall apart. If essentially Bane's like,
Not only
hey,
that,
here's how we're gonna run Gotham.
you're
and-
glossing over Azrael,
yeah, like
Yep.
you take
You
the whole
know,
weight, and then the
which
fact
was
that,
a great storyline
Yeah.
too. You know, as a Batman, you know, you had this replacement Batman,
Right.
essentially. You
yeah,
know,
and you
you
bring
had,
him
had
in
this
and-
guy that like, okay, I have this old broken down old man over here. I have to protect Gotham,
yeah, and he
and he
brought-
did,
it brought
and
up
he
the
got
fun.
out of control with it. You know, and
Mhm.
to me, that was one of my favorite Batman storylines right there.
Yeah.
That whole thing was just, it was awesome. It didn't get translated into the movies.
And that's really
as
something
that,
you
but,
can't
you know.
translate into the movies because
No,
there's
I
so much
agree.
backstory there that takes place before the Asbats.
It's true.
So
Yeah, and that once again too, though the big thing with that is you gotta imagine that movie greatly changed when Heath Ledger died.
yep.
Yeah, and
Yep.
it definitely it took that, I don't know, the spark, you know, and then
I don't know about anybody else, but I got really excited when they announced Joker and Suicide Squad.
I'm excited, but at the
Like,
same
I know
time,
Turner's like you're not like a big, you know, like
we were
but-
we
but
talked
I'm-
about
but
this
I'm
a little
like
on
bit
the
on
fence.
how
You know,
I'm
doesn't
like
belong.
let's get over it. You know,
Yeah.
let's move on with them cinematically and let's replace them with somebody. We have to all get over this, right?
Yeah.
You know? And Jared Leto, my God,
I think he could
he's
do
a
a
great
good
actor.
job.
I think he's going to do a great job.
I think he's gonna kill him.
You know,
I really do.
obviously, you know, I mean, we talk about, you know, people say all the time, who's the best Joker? You know, Ledger, Nicholson, whatever. My whole stance on that is there is no best Joker because they all portray different aspects of him
Right.
better than
Absolutely.
others.
Absolutely.
I-
So
I
it's
guess
going to be great
that's-
to see.
It's
Leto
kind. It's
in
kind of
this
like James Bond, where
Yeah.
they portrayed the Bond for the era that they were in.
That is exactly what it is.
Yeah, yep.
You know, like Caesar Romero. Could anybody have pulled that off better than in the '60s than him? I
That's
mean,
freaking perfect.
I mean, it really was. Going back, let's look at it.
Yeah.
He killed it, and he was so underrated.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we're gonna do this '89 movie. We're gonna bring it back. Let's have this crazy Jack Nicholson doing it, and he killed it.
Which
And then, you know, Heath Ledger comes. Who? Heath who?
Yeah.
You know,
And all of a sudden,
it's like, my God, you couldn't.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, that's
Well-
just. you
well,
know.
this Knight's Tale fanboy was pretty excited when they announced that movie. Yeah.
Or Mark Hamill. Let's not forget him
Yes.
as Joker.
yeah,
Like,
Hamill
that forever
is gone.
changed the Joker persona.
when I watch, I mean, you know, Maverick. You know, my son watches. You know, BATS. You know, I mean, it's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine anybody else voicing that. It's just, it's awesome. You know,
Yeah.
everybody did their part in the Joker verse, so to
Right,
speak.
right.
You know?
Well, the other side of the coin, though, is Joker never really played a big part in the Suicide Squad.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's true.
And
Yeah.
we talked about that
That's
a little
true.
bit
In the
a few
comics
weeks
they
ago,
didn't.
and how
So I think they're playing it up a little bit in the
Right.
cinematic
well,
universe.
is what I'm curious is
But-
that they cast him. Is he going to be 5 minutes at the end of the movie type
Well,
of thing?
from
or is he
what
gonna
I've
be-
read, he's supposedly locked up through the whole thing, and he appears in a riot scene towards the end of the movie.
So we might
That's
be
what
getting
I've
kind
read.
of like an Assault on Arkham type deal.
Yeah.
Which I would like
Yeah.
that approach
Which-
because
yeah.
here this
which
movie
which
needs to
opens up a
establish-
whole another can of worms.
Yeah, which we'll see how they go. I mean, if after Assault on Arkham, I would really hope that they're how do you want to say they'll they'll be basing a good chunk. I mean, having that as an animated movie,
Yep.
wow! And if the Hollywood guys watch that more than once and then go, hey, let's film this and keep that alive or keep that feel to it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I was Arkham or Assault on Arkham, and here's a big thing I think that we should talk about too. Do you feel that needed Batman? Because I got a lot of people who I've talked with aren't a big fan of the fact that like the animated movies, the only thing that they'll touch is Superman, Batman, or Justice League.
Right.
You know what I mean? Those are the only ones that they'll touch, and people were pissed off that it should have just been Suicide Squad Assault on Arkham, not Batman Assault on Arkham.
I can agree with that. I can say that movie did not need Batman at all. I mean, it was cool to have him there. I mean, he did serve kind of a purpose in the story the way they wrote him in, but there's ways around that.
Yeah, because he wasn't a main character by any stretch of the imagination. No. And it was cool with what he did, but I think it's not so much people have a problem with the fact that he was in it as much as they have a problem with the fact that we had this chance to have this group shine.
Yeah.
And it was squashed because, we got to give Batman top billing.
Yep.
He has the same agent Jack Nicholson did, but where he gets top billing.
With animated shows, though, I really don't think that that's necessary because there's a difference between, animated shows are not in the movie theater. They're not the whole mainstream. Like, if you're watching an animated movie, I feel for the most part you're a bigger fan. And you don't need to see the Batman. You don't need to see the A-list character.
Yep.
Because you just understand the story. Whereas if you're going, AAA, going to the theaters, selling out, obviously you need your big guy because it's the mainstream. Mm-hmm. But animated movies really don't. And I think that did take away from that movie a little bit.
Yeah, the people that are going to the theaters aren't going to be the ones buying the animated features.
Well, the only thing I can see, too, is, mom and dad walking through the store. Kid sees a movie. Hey, Batman!
Yep.
That's the only thing I can see right there. Is that there?
You can still sell his name on it because it's in his universe, but
with this one, I think Assault on Arkham was definitely catered towards your fans.
Yep.
Right, and an adult movie.
Yeah, and it is a
not that kind of adult movie.
A teen plus or
But yeah, it's what was the other one? It's like Justice League War in a sense. Like that movie was shockingly violent.
Yes.
And it was awesome.
The Flashpoint paradox is what really opened my eyes to how it's very violent. It's very eye-opening. It's amazing.
Yep. It's
my favorite DC animated, and I was blown away by how much blood and stuff they actually show, which is awesome. That was I think honestly, I will say the Flashpoint paradox is what got me into buying comics and stuff because I recently just started. Mm-hmm. My roommates were like, "Oh, we got this movie. Do you want to watch it with us?" And I was like, "I could go to bed or whatever. I'll just watch this movie." And I wasn't expecting much. And then the next thing you know, I was on the edge of my seat, not wanting this movie to end. And I was like, "Holy crap!" I've seen the Batmans, I've seen the theatrical stuff. But I've always, thought that superheroes could be much more than heroes. It could be way more bloody. It could be, more dark.
Right.
And I was like, wow, this universe exists. I must find it. Therefore, comics,
Let's take that to another place. Let me take you higher. But, I don't know where that came from. Something Turnus always talks about, and I agree with you 100%. Where the hell are Elseworld tales?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
We've got Earth 2, which is an ongoing.
Yeah.
But why? That's where Arkham Asylum came from, was an Elseworlds tale. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Gotham by Gaslight.
Those were good.
The Darkest Night, which you still need to track down a copy for.
That is literally, for me, inspired by one book and one book alone, and that is Red Sun.
Yeah, Red Sun.
Phenomenal. Red Sun is my favorite Superman story that I have ever read. And I will preach that to anyone, ever, always, because I love it to death.
We still kind of get them a little bit with, is it the Earth 1 titles, Mike? Earth 1 Batman, Earth 1 Superman?
Yep, and we're finally getting that part 2 to Batman due out here soon.
Right on.
Well, even if we take closer, Night of the Court of the Owls, that's not going to be, that was super brutal. I think that's going to be a movie.
Oh, it is. It's Batman versus Robin.
Shit.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah, you don't know about that?
I don't. Sorry.
Batman versus Robin?
Yeah, apparently the Court of Owls is going to be adapted into a movie called Batman versus Robin, where it looks like they have the Court of Owls in it, but essentially what it looks like to me is that the Court of Owls is going to court, if you will. Thank you. Is going to court Damian Wayne and kind of tell him he needs to go with them is kind of what I get from the trailer, which I think is stupid because I absolutely love the Court of Owls, and I don't think, especially with the way that book ends, kind of having a Batman versus Robin is stupid.
Yeah, it really
Right.
is. Because I really like the idea how they portrayed it in the books is, you know, how long is Batman patrolling Gotham? He knows every square inch of the city, but oh wait, there's something that he doesn't know about. Like,
Yeah.
It's like,
That's
hey,
huge.
we've been here since day one. You know?
yeah.
But then I know there was a lot of different tones in there, you know, and I like the whole court concept of it's like, oh, we've been around this whole time, but then at the same time it ends up, I don't know, it establishes a power greater than Batman in
Mhm.
Gotham, which at this point, I guess in the new books it definitely works because how they kind of threw him back a little bit, where he's not this super badass that we've known over the years.
Yeah, he's
But
a
at
younger
the-
Batman, right?
He's younger, but they definitely, you know, he's super smart. I think one of my big gripes I had when reading Court Owls is the whole, I forget what issue, but the deal when he's after Talon tosses him off the tower, and then when it's just like, oh, you know, there's, what is it? I'd have to look it up, but it's like, oh, there's 12 gargoyles that look over the city, and a 13th one that whatever, and then, you know, he grabs onto it and does, but it was like just the whole setup of that, where it's like, it always kind of bothered me in that sense for Batman, where it's like, yes, you know your city, but, you know, it's like, oh, I'm going to dip into this Burger King. This opened in 1983. His name, whatever. They didn't know about the side entrance because it has a dumpster in front of it.
That
You know,
should-
it's like,
That should be a whole series, like a whole new weekly. Is literally Batman chasing down normal thugs, not like supervillains, but like he's giving you a tour of Gotham as he's doing it. Like,
Where did this get here?
like, and it's all internal.
Yeah.
Like, and Batman's just like has this dead away stare, and people are trying to talk to him. And he's like, "Oh, thank you, Batman. Batman, this McDonald's opened in 1970."
And then the big reveal is his Bat computer has been using Google Maps but hasn't been updated since like 2006. So anything within the last 6 years he just doesn't know about.
yeah.
That's the best one. That's awesome. That's a skit idea right there.
It is.
I know every inch of this city. Google.
Google Joker.
He'll be,
Okay, well, our guest came back because he has children he has to watch after.
Yeah.
So now that you're back, let me ask you this question, Eric.
And by children he doesn't mean us.
other
Yeah.
children, legitimate children.
Babysitting you guys too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The joke was lame. How dare you interrupt me? But actually, it wasn't too bad. I'm sorry.
No, it was lame. It was lame.
Either way.
We'll let the audience decide. Comment below. Was that joke great or not?
Hashtag yes bovine for Hashtag no.
Hashtag
No bovine.
No vine.
No vine.
Hashtag
Yes
no
vine,
vine.
no vine. But what would get you back into comics again, Eric? Like, not necessarily buying them, but would you be all about like a Netflix subscription type service? Because I know Marvel kind of has that.
A Superbus
Or-
comic.
Or is your life and it can be. I mean, my life's too busy. I mean, I have 3 children and a couple idiots I have to look over every now and again.
Well, I know you guys. I've been, listening to you guys talking about like the digital era, how that's kind of transcending into like.
Mhm.
And that's tough for me because I get like an Amazon thing, like where I like read up on like what's new and stuff, but like you can't really duplicate that feeling of going to like a comic book show.
Yeah.
Like I did like with Mike and taking my son to it, and
To be able to
Well,
see
all right.
stuff
Well,
in print and to
Well,
yeah,
we're-
And that's kind of the thing.
I
too,
think
is,
it's
like,
kind of like where you're at in your comic book life, like whether you just want to get everything digital or if you kind of want to join the society of the whole, comic book. I don't know. It's
I don't buy a whole lot of comics, but I like going to the shop to pick them up because when I'm there, I can also have a conversation with Mike or whoever else is there about what's going on and just about anything comic related or that we both like in general. It's a form of human interaction that I don't get otherwise, which is awesome.
while we're on the subject, Mr. Bigmeyer, in your own terms, try to duplicate a Josh story about. I mean, you just took Maverick. It's his first ever comic book shop. You went to Juke Joint, which is Mike's comic shop. Eric and Mike, tell us, like, you know, about. Let's hear it. You know, let's.
Well, I think Maverick was more excited about the collectible stuff. You know, I think. You know, he thinks it's toys, but, like, you know, I'm trying to get him to know, like, you actually collect it and stuff.
You don't play with daddy's things.
Yeah, but it's, like, a great way to get him into, like, you know, he really was looking at the comic books and stuff, too, you know. It's like, he really loves superheroes and comic books, but getting back to Kyle's question, I'd have to say, if there's any way they can duplicate a death of Superman within the comic book, if you could do that nowadays, which... Probably the death of Wolverine comes,
which was in
which
there.
just happened
a little bit close. Well, right. I mean,
but then
it got people talking.
It got people talking, and like with which
it created a little buzz. You know,
how old's Maverick?
He's 5.
So 5, and then so you figure, you know, that's the age I started reading and collecting. And and I was kind of an OCD kid, so it was like, is that the same drugstore books? But then I was that type. It's like I'd have to buy.
I started too.
You know, if I could get more than one of something, I would, and you know, started bagged and boarding and all that right away. But it was the experience. You know, at that age, you know, when I see kids that young, and like guys our age bringing their kids in now and seeing that next generation, and I'm still trying to kind of gauge where they are, because it's like the kids today. I mean, this being, you know, 2 generations removed from myself, where for us at 5, 6 years old, we didn't have tablets, we didn't have phones and movies.
It's where you really lose it in that digital age, you know, where you actually have to go to a comic book shop to get comic books. You know, it's kind of like.
And
I miss that. You know, I want to go to my local comic book shop to get the latest comics. You know, I mean,
and I think
I don't want to get the digital version on my phone. You know,
Right.
I want to like go to somebody, talk to the owner.
Well, not only that, the big
Yeah.
thing I feel that comic book shops offer is just like you said with Maverick. The first thing he ran to was action figures.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, you can get as many digital comics as you want. You can't get a digital action figure.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's
true.
I mean, that's huge.
that
You know,
that is true. Yeah.
what's gonna excite? You know, he's 5. What's gonna excite him more? You know, books are awesome. I love comic books, but it's gonna be that Batman, Superman action figure.
Right.
I mean, it's a good starting point.
Well, and on that tangent, these days, it does kind of worry me, and I'm talking to our reps all the time. When we, you know, and most of us were all kind of in that same age bracket within a few years of each other, and I remember the biggest thing, like when I was 8 years old, I have a nephew who's just a few years younger than I am, and he and I mean, hardcore Ninja Turtles and He-Man and G.I. Joe. But at the time, you know, early, late 80s, you could buy a figure with your allowance. I remember we'd have our $5 weekly allowance, and I could buy 2 G.I. Joes at KB Toys. I could buy 2 Ninja Turtles with my $5. And now, the average action figure is $24.99.
Yep.
And then when I'm always looking, you know, every week I scope out the bigger stores, and I'm always looking. I'm like, what's the allowance figure these days? What is the, you know, for a kid that's 5 to 10 years old, you know, it's like here you can get, you know, G.I. John for $3.99, or you can get G.I. Joe for $11.99. And to find, when you look at like your Supermans and Batmans now, those like $6.99, $7.99 figures, personally I think they're awful. Like they're like even the quality of them doesn't match what we had 30 years ago.
That's true.
And
I would have to agree with that.
you know, and I don't know. I joke with my girlfriend about it because it's like I fear when that time comes and I have kids, I'm gonna be that guy that's like, you don't get any you get a stuffed bear, and that we found at a rummage sale, and you're gonna get, you know, I'm not gonna buy you, you know, a $10 Ninja Turtle that you're gonna break. I'm not gonna buy.
Well, it kind of gets to the point where nothing's physical, everything's digital.
Yeah.
You know, video games aren't physical.
Mhm.
You know, you don't get to
It's not
actually
tangible,
hold it.
yeah, there's-
You don't get to grab it off the rack and hold it in your hands. You know, you just download it. You know, and same thing with comics. You know, and I think it's just a different experience when you get to actually walk into a comic book shop, look at exactly what you're looking for, pick it out. You know, it's bags and boards.
It's all there. And,
Right.
I'm
It's
finding now.
it's just a kind of a lost thing. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to see it go away. You know,
Well, exactly.
Yeah, and that's the huge thing, you know, like comic book, you know, other retailers, listen up, you know, your atmosphere is a huge reason. Like, you know, Mike's an awesome guy, but if he wasn't sitting here, I'd be saying the same thing about his comic store. Is the atmosphere is amazing. You know, it's
I
not like
appreciate that.
it's
yeah,
not,
it's
you know,
true though. I said that before.
you don't walk in and like, oh, here's comic books.
We had
you know?
another comic book shop, which I won't name, which had
Actually,
which had a it just had
February 14th.
it just had a completely different vibe to it when you went into it.
Yep.
I could tell right off when I went into Mike's shop, it was a totally different vibe. You know, I was
First of all, no girls, so we were right at ease right away.
yeah. What are these strange creatures here? yeah. No, yeah. It was a big difference. You know, it was
You know, you have the action figures, you have the posters hanging up.
physical.
You know, you
thing.
have a
you know?
movie playing in the background.
Right.
It's just
And-
like
It sets
This
a
is-
different tone.
Yeah,
This
it
is-
absolutely
speaking
does.
as a 28-year-old man-child,
yeah.
I walked into Mike's shop for Free Comic Book Day, 2013, and I saw a bunch of action figures there, and I was like, I'm gonna come back to this place. I can tell, and I'm there buying crap all the time now, and it's, you know, that's what hooked me.
I will say though, the best thing I ever heard Turner say was, I can't remember what you were describing to me. It was something with an action figure, and then you just stopped and you go, "Man, the things that come out of my mouth sometimes." But wow, I just lost my train of thought.
Yeah,
but yeah,
We're
you
getting
create
distracted by-
the atmosphere.
I
you
remember.
know,
I
more
remember
business.
staying at my sister's apartment. There was actually a comic book shop in their apartment building,
Oh, nice.
which I could actually go
What?
down to. You know, which I really didn't because I didn't have a key to their apartment and I didn't want to like.
Right?
Yeah.
It was kind of like creepy, you know. But they had like the best like comic book shop, and I remember going down there and like reading stuff, and they didn't really care. You know, I would like, you know, I would rip off their stuff basically by reading it and then going back up to the apartment. But
Yeah.
that was another like through my teens. That's kind of like what I did. But it was just it's just a totally different experience. Even when I went down there and did that, you know, it's just it can't really duplicate that digital. You know,
And here's one thing I will say, Mike, is that when I was at your shop on Friday, one of the things that kind of like took me back was there was a guy in there, probably very early 20s, or it could even be in his teens, and he was in there with his girlfriend, and she seemed to be just as interested in as he was, and was buying books as well.
oh yeah,
That's awesome.
Like I think that's a big thing too, that we
I think you see more and more of that.
more female like
Yeah.
females getting interested in that stuff altogether. What they said, I think now if you go by MMOs, actually your MMOs, it's more female players than it actually is males.
Really?
Yep. Yep.
Which is
some
one thing
some
I
of
love
those
about
games,
your guys'
yeah.
show. I really have to say that kind of breaks down everything about. You don't really need to be into comics to watch your guys' show, the C3 show,
Yep.
Well,
exclusively on YouTube.
exclusively.
We just signed a 2-year extension.
yeah.
But yeah, it's like one of those things. Like my wife has nothing to do with comics or like wrestling or anything, you know. But like,
Good.
yeah, but like you guys kind of break it down to like she totally gets it. You know, it's a very good show. You know, I think you guys.
Well, there's
Appreciate
certainly,
that.
certainly
Well, thank you.
yeah, so it's-
But that's a big thing too with comics, and that's why. And we can talk about this too, is the accessibility.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about how getting you back into it, you know, would you go with a Netflix or anything? And you said, and the first thing you said was not even a distribution method, but yours was like an event.
Right.
You know what I mean? You want
something that
something to jump onto.
And when
I'd
you were,
like an event that's never been done before,
And-
like
and that won't-
duplicating the death of Superman.
Yeah,
you
like
know,
going
back to the, you know,
going
like,
back on my
how
point
could
with
you
that,
duplicate that?
you know, like
It's
I
hard.
picked it up instantly. I was alive, but I didn't know what comics were during the death of the Superman.
Right.
From how I understood it, is it's something that's not not in films. And like I said, you're not gonna go to the movies to see the death of Superman.
No,
It's
not yet.
exclusive to comics.
Well, that's what it's lacking. That's what comics is lacking. The one thing you're gonna see in the comics, like maybe that was the bad thing about Guardians of the Galaxy. It was now you can see it in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the crazy thing about
You know,
Guardians too.
Yeah, it was.
Is that Guardians was very much so a creation for the movie.
Straight up. Yeah,
Straight up,
right.
because they were in that Spider-Man animated show. I remember seeing, because they introduced them in the Marvel animated universe, if you will. I've seen a couple.
Yeah. They also have a new Guardians cartoon coming out on Disney XD.
So
that movie was straight up. I mean,
it's a
lot of
good
people,
and bad thing for comics. It's like
it brought how do I want to say
it brought
families
mainstream
to
fame to the title itself. But
and that one straight up. Well, the number one thing that sold Guardians was the fact that it was a freaking great movie.
Yep.
And
that's true.
And a lot of people,
Nobody can
because
argue
even
with
in the
that.
comic universe, I myself 100% oblivious. The movie was based, and I think we've talked a little bit before. Guardians of the Galaxy have been around for 30 some years.
Yep.
The movie is based on a book that just came out 4 or 5 years ago, had a 12-issue run, and then that was about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, hey, that's the one that got picked up. Those are the characters that got picked up. Or more so, I should say, that version of Star-Lord is what got picked up.
Right.
And Chris Pratt absolutely nailed that character. And when you take things, or when you talk about like accessibility, Marvel has the $1 billion ad machine behind it now, and you have families going out. The Avengers 2 right now, I'm gonna just throw it out there. I think they're gonna make $2.5 billion.
Yeah.
Really?
I'm gonna wage it up there. Star Wars, obviously, at the end of this year is going to.
Ooh, baby.
Yeah, I mean,
baby.
it already has at least $100 for me. So I'll,
maybe Star Wars is that one event. That's kind of
which could be if the comic that just came out.
Who cares what the title is? I mean, as long as it's an event that gets people talking about the actual comic. I mean,
which we didn't notice with Guardians.
Yeah,
and it's funny. I was that Oksana? Hi there.
Yeah. There's currently a
let's
Divas
edit that out, or Mike's wife.
There's distractions.
Puppies!
Damn.
We believe in equality for women,
Oh,
especially when they're beating each other up.
This is hard to film when you're watching.
okay. And it is kind of it's fitting as we talk about accessibility and.
Mike's just stupid right now.
Oh my
He's just
God.
like a puddle.
I just
Like a puddle of piss right now. Mike.
Sorry.
That's Corey Graves on the. That's awesome.
Yeah, recently retired, but no, I was looking at the gals on film, and when we talk about accessibility and how these days, are the number one things that we hear in the industry is how it's just like, it's not accessible by kids and it's not accessible by women, and it's still the same gripes that we've had in the industry forever on how it's just like, the sexism of it and the and just how it's too violent for kids and even though that's the formula that has worked since 1939 and more so, since Marvel in the 60s, that's what sells. And these days where when women come into a shop and it's like, oh, what books, or like our last podcast, when we had the gals on and we sent them home with some books that, according to the industry note, says this is what women readers will like, and we haven't gotten our response back from those gals yet to see if they liked them or not.
We might have scared them away forever.
Do you think that's ever possible with comic books?
To scare women?
That you'll ever get them in. That you'll ever get them
I
in the
think
comic
so.
books.
I mean, I personally.
Do you think you can get a book out there that is women,
the
children,
50 Shades of Grey,
everything
comic
accessible?
books?
Well, would you ever have thought MMOs would be dominated by women?
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? It's
Dude, March Justice League variants, Magic Mike Justice League cover.
Yeah.
If that's not for girls, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
I think that's for everybody.
That's
I'm
for
gonna
everybody.
buy it, but
Yeah.
And then Batgirl, Purple Rain.
Oh, I need
Oh.
that.
That's gonna be solid.
Oh, that's got to be a poster.
But then,
But if you look at it, I mean, all right, let's check Guardians
How
of the
many is that
Galaxies.
selling though? Actually, I mean,
Batgirl?
Yeah.
Batgirl's doesn't. I hardly sell any Batgirl, and then but those variants seem to move well. The March ones will have a pretty good appeal to them. But then, that's our
Well,
struggle.
they have a
It's
great
like,
appeal, but nobody wants to buy them.
yeah,
So-
people aren't going to be rushing.
They
to
buzz
the
about
store.
them, but it's
I'm-
like they
I'm
don't
not
run to the
sure.
store to buy them, though.
I don't know. I love variants. Like,
But,
Depends what
but
they
if you
are,
look
though.
at it from a non-comic standpoint,
what's
the only
point
people
of
that
it?
heard, or right now, as of now, in this room, we're all aware of it because we
Right.
read the comics and we read that news. Outside of the comic world, I don't think there's. Well, I shouldn't say that there is not, but I don't think there's that demographic that's going, oh wow, check this out. A comic
Yeah.
book that I've never read in my life is having this movie variants month.
There's
I'm a
not
movie
that
lover.
there's not that hook out there
Yeah.
that just gets you in and just
And we don't see
in the comic book form. In the movie form, yeah, you can release Guardians of the Galaxy. It's $1 million box office hit, but
Yeah.
in the comic book world, it's really hard. Everybody's getting killed every other week.
Yep.
Mhm.
Captain America's gets killed. It's like now Wolverine's getting killed. It's like
Well, here's
it's lost. It's
here's the thing. Kind of going back to Batgirl, I'll just kind of get your guys' thoughts. How do you feel about the direction they took her? I think I read the first issue where they kind of did the. I don't even think I read it. I think I breezed over it, where they did the whole thing where basically she moves. They kind of update her, make her younger. But I love Gail Simon, however you want to say her name. She is an amazing writer, and she's one of those people that's so good she kind of inspires you, like, to write. Because I'm not that good at writing characters, especially women, because I have not had that experience. I was blessed with a wiener. I mean, I don't
Blessed
and
indeed.
we all were.
blessed. I don't know how blessed, but I was given one.
About this blessed.
Yeah. But anyways,
About this.
But anyways, so basically we took a character that was has been through a lot, was a huge thing for especially women to look up to. I mean, she was on par with the Bat family. You could by the time they ended that book, you could say that she was on par with Nightwing in terms of how good she was, how
Powerful
talented she
character,
was,
yeah.
how powerful of a character, how developed. And then they just kind of take her back to these teen roots, which that's great that you're trying to get more people involved in it, but I'm kind of like, this was such a good character. And one that's so important to,
That kind of begs the question: does a good female-driven character, or just a good character, period, get the females into it? I mean, is there a difference?
Well,
Do they themselves, you think, want to be?
Well, and
maybe
that-
we
that
need
is-
like
that is-
females,
right, and we definitely love that feedback from any female listeners because
some
we
females
do
don't
see-
even
we
like Catwoman and stuff like
Yeah.
that. They
And-
don't.
Well,
They like, a good drawn out character.
if
I
it's a
should
well
say.
written book, yeah,
Right.
and that is one big thing that the industry, and this applies to many things, and I've had some healthy talks with like some of my feminist friends and some of my feminazi friends about how it seems where it's just like, oh, we need women we want women to get into this industry, so we're going to create a new woman that all women want to read, and it's like, and my general feedback has been, it's not that. They don't want
to
it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a strong.
superhero.
We have Wonder Woman. We have Supergirl.
Buffy.
We have
Buffy the Vampire.
we have Buffy.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think most women readers, just like male readers, it's like we want a story worth reading. We want.
Can I just throw it out there that a lot of women love Batman?
Yeah.
Well, and see,
all women
here's-
love Batman. Everybody loves Batman.
Here's
Well, I'm
the
just
thing, I
saying, a
think-
lot of females, I think. I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
I think
No,
I think you're
there's-
right.
Yeah.
I think Batman's just
He's an
interesting
he's a very
character
accessible
overall.
character.
He's just male or female, doesn't matter. He's just a very interesting character.
And-
I think kind of what Kyle was trying to get at though was like you have this strong female character. You have Batgirl. She's very awesome, very incredible. And in order to try and make her appeal to a younger audience, they alienated all the people that were already fans of her.
That were already fans.
Yeah.
No, and
Sort
I
of like
definitely
when they
see
got
that
rid of
point. When
Oracle,
when you throw that out away and like, oh, now she's a
Yeah.
selfie.
So you
Facebook
love this
star.
character.
Yeah.
She's not that character anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they should have just. I don't know. Can you make
why-
her a new character?
Why couldn't Stephanie Brown be that character?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
she's young already, and we're already introducing her, and everybody likes her,
Yeah.
and it'd be fine to have her do selfies because she's of that age,
Mhm.
and she'd be incredibly accessible.
I'd be all about that.
Because she's she's kind of that same one. She's not as well developed, but she's smart. She's
We
she's
bring
all that
back
stuff.
Inspector Gadget.
Bring
We
back
have Penny.
Yeah, give Penny adventures. I want
Boom.
Penny adventures.
The Adventures of Penny
Yeah.
with Inspector Gadget and the doggy.
Kind of commenting on something aside here. One thing I never really got was I love Batman. Always reading about the history about him and all that. People always say that they created the character of Robin so that kids could kind of insert themselves into the story.
Yeah.
Why aren't these kids wanting to be Batman? I don't get that.
Yeah.
If I'm reading a story about Batman, I'm gonna imagine that I'm Batman, not that I'm the teen sidekick. Fuck that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That always pissed me off.
Yeah, but maybe Robin's the thing you could relate to the most because that's what you were probably told to do.
Maybe
You were told to be the sidekick.
I'm not much
That's-
for relating.
I would
to
say-
it
maybe they could
because-
relate to that more because it's
Well,
I
because
think Robin has a thing where he's held down to where he's the sidekick, and maybe you can,
And
as
my-
a teen, you can maybe relate
my thing
more
that
to
He's
that
the
than
rebellious
Batman.
one. Yeah,
On
he's-
that-
You
same
don't know
note-
what you're doing as Batman.
On that
as a
same
teen,
note,
you
though,
know?
my thing of it too is they always say, "Oh, Peter Parker's such a relatable character."
Yeah,
Okay, well, in a
If-
sense,
if
he
you're
is,
a
but
super
when
genius-
I'm tired of dealing with life and I want to get away from things, I can't go fucking web slinging around the city.
Yeah.
He's not that relatable.
Yeah.
Because he's got these superpowers that I don't have.
Yeah. And he's also a genius, and I'm.
So I'd rather just imagine
I'm
myself.
still waiting
being
for
him,
that.
you know?
Well, on that guy that Jordan interviewed back to the Red Line. I mean, I know we
Yeah.
keep bringing it up, but I'm excited for that because he straight up says, "Big Bang Theory is my." It was a
Inspiration.
inspiration, and
Yeah.
we're because as comic book fans, does anyone here like the Big Bang Theory?
I do not.
We all think it kind of portrays us how we're really not.
Yep.
And when he said that his inspiration for it was he's a normal guy with no credibility who wants to be a superhero, that's super relatable.
Yeah.
And I
Doesn't
can't.
he want to be a villain?
Well,
Yeah.
regardless, he wants to be.
He wants to be the next level.
Well, villains are superheroes too. It's
Yeah.
just whatever faction they're on.
I read you guys' shit.
So,
But I don't.
but regardless, that sounds like someone that I can relate to.
Exactly. That's relatable. It's relatable to be a normal person, to want to have that next level. I always hated this notion that we're supposed to relate to these superpowered beings. I'd rather just escape by pretending to be them than trying to relate, because I can't relate.
Well,
I would say first of all, I'm gonna get on Turner's because I don't think he tries to web sling hard enough. Number one,
I don't
but
You're not getting your hand
but
motions.
I agree
There's
with
no tall buildings in Bismarck,
Yeah.
so
I agree with Turnus 100%. But the only thing I would throw out there is I think that's a generational thing.
could
I think kids of the 30s and 40s and 50s, because that was everywhere. Like you said, it's not so much anymore.
yeah.
But that's how it was.
At the time, in the '60s when he hit, it was you go to college, you do, you had the world, and especially when he dropped. I mean, what was that? 1960? Ouch, 2.
When who drops? When
What are you talking about?
Spider? Okay, yeah.
Oh, Spider-Man, okay.
Yeah.
So, but at that time, where it's it was that character that it's college kids, and, food break.
Yeah, food break.
Yeah,
I'm gonna let
food
you
break
guys-
apparently.
All right, well, while we're on the food break, let me just describe to you the food that we have here. So, Mr. McMyers
Personal
Wife.
chefs.
made this chili, but calling it chili doesn't do it justice.
No.
It's in a crock pot. And you know how they make Hallmark cards that when you open them, they have a little jingle? When you open this crock pot, you get the heavenly fanfare of trumpets.
You
This is a butt trumpet.
And you pour it into this bowl, and you're looking at it, and you're like, this looks like chili I've eaten before. So you're not really expecting it. But you have to mentally prepare for this chili. because it's gonna come out of nowhere, and it's gonna make you sing, and it's gonna make you dance because it is amazing.
It is.
And
It's like an RKO to your taste buds.
it is an
Out of
RKO
nowhere.
RKO to your, yeah,
out of nowhere.
exactly. That's correct.
So if you ever have a chance, you to eat this chili, I don't know how you would.
You
Maybe
won't.
we can give
I
it
tell,
away.
tell you what,
You won't.
this week's podcast giveaway. So we're gonna fill up one
And
Tupperware's worth
Yeah.
of
Of
That,
area,
that-
yeah.
that is a good place to cut though. Now that you know how good the chili we're eating is, I think there's not a better way to stop. So everyone have a good week.
I'm gonna eat
Goodbye.
some chili.
catch you soon.
Mmm, tasty.